Bam! What's going on, everyone? Welcome to this week's episode of The Morning Show. I am your host, Elliot Rodriguez. You can see my name right here. This is the mighty blue pen that I used to take my notes and ask my questions. Um, but yes, welcome to this week's show. Thank you very much for everybody that's tuning in. Also for the people that are going to check this out on the replay. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Hopefully today I'm not going to have any hiccups. I don't. I'm 100% sure that I'm not going to have any hiccups in terms of my guests because I think we got the schedule thing lined up right. Last time I had a miscommunication issue with Raiden, and he came on much later. So yeah, check out that stream and then ignore the first 20 minutes of that, and then check out the last hour of that. It was really good show with Rayton. So yeah, so I want to say hi to the people in the chat. Um, Pops, what's going on, Pops? Man, I don't know if you're still watching or not, but thank you very much for stopping by. And he says this show needs to go to Roku with us. I'm not sure what that is. I would love to be on the Madness Comic Network. I don't know, Pops, if you're doing shows still, but if you did, then yeah, hit me up. I would love to be on the show again. Here's a fun fact for people watching. My first ever live stream ever was on Pops's show way back in the day when he first started doing his Cron Cons. I think it was Cron Con number 7. So just think about how far back that went. So yeah, it was really. I met a lot of great people through Pops, and yeah, shout out to Pops and his comic network. Shout out, thank you very much for stopping by, and thank you as always for the support. It means a lot. It means a lot. And then also, I have my sister. What's up, dude? How you doing? It's always good to have the family stop by and make fun of you while you're doing your show. But yeah, so without and so just to introduce my guest today, it's a mysterious guest. I think the thumbnail does the guest justice because I know very little of the guest. Uh, I've had a few interactions on Twitter, and we're chatting. Seems to be a really cool person, and so the chance and the opportunity came up to come on the show, and so I want to say hi to Mr. Okay, I'm back. Oh man, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm telling myself and everybody on the show I was having connection issues. I'm very sorry. If you've been a follower of this show and you've seen the show before, you know that what just happened tends to happen, and I'm very sorry. But yes, so I was saying that my guest is mysterious in that we don't know much about him, and then hopefully we'll get to learn more about him on the show today. So without further ado, I would like to. I'm going to mess up his name. I'm going to like to introduce whiskey from. Oh man, I'm just gonna wait for him to come on because I don't want to destroy his name. But I'm going to bring on my guest whiskey. Please, everybody, a big round of applause for whiskey.
Yeah,
Hey, what's going on, man?
not
What
a whole lot today. So it's Bayonet and Ricochet Miniatures is the
man?
company. And Whiskey's my handle, I guess.
Excellent. Yeah. So welcome everybody, Bayonet and Ricochet. What's going on, man? And yeah, thank you very much for for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. And um, so just to know, how are you doing? What can you tell us about yourself?
Well, firstly, I'm Canadian. I'm recently started to get into comics. For the past several years, I've been working on developing a tabletop war game called Banner Steed and Lance. My job, I guess, is a 3D modeler and designer, and for like several years or so, I've been working on these projects. I do commission work for 3D models. I specialize in miniatures and figures and action figures and production stuff. Uh, yeah, I'm sort of conservative, sort of libertarian. I don't know. That's basically me.
Sweet. So but your main, I guess, work of interest is comics, or is it more 3D sculpting?
It's 3D modeling. I'm actually
Modeling.
not
I'm
that
sorry.
great at 2D art, but I ran into Luke Stone from Found My Comic not
Oh,
too long
nice.
ago, and we've been hanging out doing the FM the Found My Comic streams like Nerd Bacon if you've seen those,
Yeah.
and I guess I fell in love with the platform. His idea like of an independent kind of thing that you could promote your comics on and do crowdfunding that wasn't didn't have any censorship on it, right? You weren't going to get just shadow banned if you
Yeah.
posted a comic that they didn't necessarily ideologically agree with. So I felt that was a really good thing to support. So along the way of supporting Luke, because he did when I actually first encountered Luke, he didn't have a spot on the website for miniatures, and then he put one on because I suggested miniatures. So I'm like, wow, this guy's really cool. And so I just, the relationship built from there, and we became friends, and I just kept regularly doing streams with the guy. And eventually I decided that I wanted to do a comic based on the universe that our game was set in, and that's basically what's going on with this character here, which is a character from that book. So I ended up looking around for different artists, and I've always wanted to do a comic myself. My original desire to get into 3D modeling was to actually. This is long before Marvel kind of shot themselves in the foot, but I wanted to
Yeah.
get into work for Marvel many years ago, and one of the requirements at that time for hiring on artists was a at least a passing familiarity with 3D modeling. So several years later, after 3D modeling, I got into the designing miniature. I just stayed in 3D modeling. I just enjoyed it so much. Uh, and I got into developing my own tabletop board game because I was also had a love for tabletop games. I was getting sick of the censorship in the industry, and the politics of these different companies, and just decided to start doing stuff myself. But I always retained a love for comics, and this is kind of like getting this comic made at the same time as for developing the game is kind of like getting both of those dreams completed.
Nice. Now, I'm going to ask everybody in the chat and just everybody listening to pardon my ignorance because my main exposure to this world that we're in is mostly through comics. I'm not familiar at all with what a tabletop board game is. Can you give us an example of one and explain to us? Because, for example, I hear the word board game and I associate Monopoly and things of that nature. Guess Who,
Yeah.
Connect Four. But I seriously doubt that this is where the tabletop board game is at.
So tabletop war games, not board games, but war games, right? Has
War
been
games.
a war
W.
games, yeah, has been
Oh, wow.
essentially a thing since the late 1800s with the Prussian Empire, basically, who started it uh, as a as a kick, like an expansion on chess, right? So they made up this thing called Blitz Kriegspiel, right, which essentially is just war game. And Kriegspiel is basically just a way for the Prussian commanders to set up their armies and stuff and use it to uh, better strategize on the field of battle. And they've been doing this stuff for hundreds of years. You've seen all the little figures throughout history, all the way up until the colonial era up to the up until modern era. And then along came around the popularity in the 70s, I guess, to start to take off, or late 80s, was a company called Games Workshop. So Games Workshop was this tabletop board game miniature production company, and they basically started to gain fame and popularity up until the mid 90s. And then when they started to reach the 2000s, they sort of got heavily into politics, and then basically screwed over all the fan bases in the same way that Marvel has kind of done the same thing, right? They've taken
Yeah.
the original ideas and then just made it really woke, if to
Yeah.
for that kind of thing. So tabletop wargaming has been sort of an aspect of my life since the early 90s. Is very popular in the US, Canada, and the UK, where it's originally from. And I played it throughout my entire youth. Like, you go to a comic shop here in Canada, there'd be these miniatures as well for these tabletop war games. So what you do is you collect the miniatures, you paint them, and then you assemble them and paint them, and then you play games with them, right? It's not so much of a board game as because you wouldn't have a board, you'd have a terrain and a tabletop that simulated a battlefield.
Huh. Like Risk?
Sort of like Risk, but imagine much more in depth and developed,
Bigger
right?
scale.
Bigger scale. War games have been around, like I said, since the 1800s. There's classic war games like Kriegspiel. There's other war games where it's just you'll see a bunch of older men, like really old guys, playing World War II battles and so on and so
Oh,
forth.
wow.
There's basically, like comics, there's a war game pretty much for almost every kind of genre or taste out there, right? From
Nice.
skirmish games to sci-fi to fantasy to realism to historical and so on and so forth.
So all of these genres can be represented in a war game.
Yeah, all these different genres, and
Oh,
you can
nice.
basically anything you can think of. And
Sweet.
with the advent of 3D printers and stuff like that, and 3D modeling, it's never been easier for smaller independent creators to cut the production cost of these things down to ridiculously cheap levels. So a couple of years ago, when the 3D printers started to reach a certain point where you could use them for production, is when I basically, the iron was hot, and then I started developing a war game. Unfortunately, I ran into a bunch of financial issues along the way, and the start of COVID, I sunk a bunch of money into the project just before COVID started, and then it's just been a struggle to kind of keep it going since then.
Nice. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the the struggles, no, but it's really interesting. This idea of the war game, and so you're creating your own. What's the name of your game?
Banner, Steed, and Lance.
Banner,
Steed and Lance.
Steed, and Lance.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
So we
So
can actually see
set in medieval times.
it's basically set in around that time, but it's not exactly a one-to-one kind of medieval universe, because it takes some elements from the 800s, like the Viking era, up to the mid medieval era, 15th, 14th, 15th, 16th century. and it centers around the idea of jousting as part of one of the elements of the game.
Oh,
But
nice.
it has several different modules for it. One module, there's a jousting module that kind of plays out like a narrative campaign with like intrigue and plots and things. While this jousting tournament's going on, you're also like trying to like assassinate the king or the opposing lord, that like visiting lord.
Yeah.
You know, there's you know, intrigue and all that stuff. And then there's a module for like a full-fledged war game where you line up all your forces in a row and you have your formations and like uh, bows and arrows and traditional kind of war game stuff, and then a skirmish game which is a little bit smaller, somewhat similar to like a D&D in a sense, where you have a couple guys on the table, and each of these modules can be played individually to make up a whole, or you can play them one at a time to speed things up, just have a and get a quick game in. And these are
So
some. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. So these 3D models that you're making, you're making them in because they're going to later be the miniatures that you're going to use for this war game that you're creating. Is that
Yes, that's
correct?
correct. Yeah.
Okay,
So this is
awesome.
this knight here is one of the first line of 5 miniatures that was planned, right?
Nice. So first, well, obviously the first thing is to mold this, get the model done, and then 3D print it, paint it,
Mhm.
and then get it ready for others to enjoy.
Essentially, yes. So what you first you would do is you model it, then you would do a master copy, which is a lot larger than this one. Then you would recast it, and that shrinks it down a bit, and then you would produce those the recasted version. People would paint them themselves, assemble and paint them. Some of this stuff is just commission work I've done in the past for 3D models. This is another guy that wanted something done for a tabletop game that he was working on,
Nice.
based on Nazi zombies, I guess,
Yeah.
was the theme. It was for an old movie that went under, featuring Nazi zombies, and he wanted some miniatures for it. So I made him one, but he never went anywhere. He ran out of money for his project, and so this
Yeah, it
is
looks great.
the only one that
Yeah.
was ever made.
Nice. Yeah, this I'm assuming this just looking at all these 3D models like this in terms of art wise, this is really great because it gives you excellent reference material
Oh yeah.
for drawing. Yeah, definitely awesome stuff. And so right now you're working on a comic that is tied into your game, or
So
is
yeah,
that different?
this same universe, but it's 300 years down the line into the Age of Sail. So we're seeing in the comic, which is called Driftwood,
Driftwood, yeah.
is set in the same universe, and there's a lot to this universe. I paid a historian, writer, a friend of mine, to write over 800 years of history for the tabletop game. So we're basing
Wow.
that extensive history of this universe on this world. So in that world, there is I guess these different factions that are in the game, and one of those factions is sort of like a mock, which I know it's kind of been done before, but like a mock um, uh, Christianity, like what do you call it, like papal society, uh, you know,
Oh, wow.
sort of things. But in the future of of that universe, what happened is that they had these honored dead they could like summon to help them, in their campaigns and stuff like that. They could bring people back from the dead, and to serve in their army. So they were able to use these dead people to advance their goals and stuff like that, and be part of their regular troops and so on and so forth. And they used something called this giant black pillar, was part of their empire, and the empire was called they're called the Bartolome, which is a play on Italian. The whole universe is basically different mishmashes of different cultures. We have the Roostaman, which are like Rus Vikings, sort of. We have the Merovingian, which are sort of like French. We have the Air Koning, which translates to the Here Kings, and Old Germanic, but they're like sort of like a play on the English. We have
Yeah.
and a bunch of different other factions as well. But in that same universe, this black pillar, 300 years later into the future, it sort of has crashed and fell apart, and it's massive. Like imagine like an asteroid hitting the planet and they wiping out like a nation, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So out of the ashes of that nation, a necromantic empire has sort of spawned up out of the ashes of that calamity. And basically the comic is set in that universe, in that universe during that time, where this necromantic empire, or these basically evil necromancers, are have taken over whatever's left of this nation, and figured out how to use the shards of this giant pillar of the old Bartolome Empire to basically make themselves immortal. At the same time that those shards have become a commodity for them to go out and become the most powerful nation on the planet. So they're expansionists. So it's sort of like the similar to the because it's a mishmash of different cultures, right? So it's like the sort of like the Spanish and Latin and Italian and all of it kind of mixed into one, but with like a hint of like necromancy.
Fantasy.
Yeah. So like imagine the Spanish Empire during the Age of Sail as they're expanding and conquering and taking land, except for they have skyships, they have zombies, they have magic, and they're essentially wizards.
Will there be crusades in your?
Yeah, kind of. I guess there'd be like kinds of crusades, kinds of like war and all that stuff.
Nice.
What's taking place in the comic Driftwood is essentially is the story from two of the characters' perspectives in that empire. You have the if you can go back a little bit.
Yeah, 1 second. Let's see. Go back. This one? No, go back further.
Further back to the skeleton-looking dude.
Oh yeah, this guy.
There we go. So this guy, Count Dantes.
He's from Black Pillar.
He's in that empire. So all the wizards in this, they are basically a council of lich lords. A lich being an undead wizard.
Undead wizard. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he's one of the part of that council, which is the ruling class of that society. And he's become a lich, and his story takes place with his apprentice, or his ward, or maybe not necessarily ward, but his companion, which is a captain in the army, which is also one of the wizards. But that captain is human. So we see the whole comic take place from their perspective. That's basically the comic. It's about these wizards and this necromantic empire. There's no good in this in that empire. I wanted to do something that essentially didn't have a hero story. I wanted to. I was
just about to ask, because it's like I was going to ask if there's going to be a hero, because it looks like this is like a villain's tale.
Yeah, it's definitely a villain's tale, but like the villain's tale from a perspective of an empire that itself is evil and conquering. In that sense.
Nice. So we go through his story as he tries to conquer this world that he's in.
Well, sort of. He's trying to. His goals in this thing are, well, I'm not going to specifically state them, but the idea is that while this empire is trying to conquer things, other forces in the universe are sort of drawing them into. It just poses the question: what happens when evil characters have to save the universe, right? So these two characters are basically going to be drawn into while they're trying to serve their empire, into something completely different that basically tasks them with being the hero, but they're not the hero at all. So it's like the worst. Imagine if Frodo was, in order to Frodo to throw the ring into the fiery pits of Mount Doom, was in fact one of the evil people like himself, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So that's an interesting situation that they put in. Nice. And so in this project, are you the writer, or are you?
I'm the writer. I hired because I'm not particularly great at 2D art. I spent way too long doing 3D, and I have to brush up my skills on 2D again. But I hired Elliot Rodriguez, or not Elliot Rodriguez, sorry.
That's me.
Renzo
My,
Rodriguez.
Renzo, yeah. The
You're
other
from
Rodriguez, yeah.
the other Rodriguez. I apologize
No, no,
for
no,
that
no.
stuff. I actually have a page that he did here. If we can throw
Yeah,
that up
actually, yeah, I'm gonna I look. Oops.
here.
One second, just give me a second because I have those images.
Sure.
Yeah, that was a nice surprise because Renzo is a big name around these parts, and so seeing him attached to the project, I was like, wow, that's a really big plus for the project because we all love Renzo, and one second,
Renzo's
let me.
he's a really nice guy, especially if you get to talk to him, if I get a chance to talk to him personally.
Yeah, he's awesome.
I actually first approached him for the comic book, but he was busy doing other stuff at the time, and he gave me the time of day where a lot of other creators just didn't even respond to any messages. A lot of other people didn't, or they weren't comfortable with the 3D design elements because I wanted to be part of it. They just wanted a script. But like I'm an
Yeah.
artist as well, so I wanted to design the characters and give like references. We're actually using 3D models in some of the work as well, as like reference images and set up scenes and doing panel layouts and things. It really helps facilitate lighting and other stuff like that. And here's the two characters I just talked about.
Yeah, exactly. What's the name of this villain? Oh, I'm sorry, this character, the hero,
So
the
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 heroes.
skeleton guy.
The skeleton guy is Count Dantes, and the other
Oh
one
yeah, Count Dantes.
is Captain Von Diago.
Sorry, Count Dantes.
So
Like
it
from
take
Count de Monte Cristo.
very similar. I used a play on those two characters because I sort of not based them on them, but I used elements from that story to create the relationship between these two characters, sort of like frenemies in a sense. You know how
Yeah,
they're constantly contentious and stuff like that, and their names are different. Like Dantes would be, I think, the good guy in in the original Count of Monte Cristo, whereas
he's one of the bad guys. No,
he's one of the bad.
Edmund. He's the main character. Yeah, Edmund.
Yeah, Edmund. Yeah, so their kind of roles are slightly reversed in a sense
Mm.
in this, but they're both bad, so it kind of doesn't really matter that much.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. In regards to Renzo, yeah, Renzo's on many projects, and the guy he works like nonstop. I think. I don't think you can like name all the projects he's done. He's done Viking Wolf. He's done. There's a space comic that he did also. I forgot the name of the comic. Uh, but he did a Thomas Valiant. He's done a lot of projects, and yeah, I love Renzo's work. He's also doing Coney Waves for Mark Polton, and
He just finished that
yeah,
one actually.
yeah. So he's always busy working, and yeah, he's really good, excellent artist. One day I'm gonna have to have him on, because I'm under the impression, as you just mentioned, that because he's doing so much work, and I don't think I've ever seen him on a stream. I was just under the impression that maybe he's like too busy um, to hang out, but I'm gonna give him a shout out and see if I can get him on the show one day, and yeah, it would be great to talk to him. I may have to do that show in Spanish, which I don't know if he's down for that. But yeah, so you're a writer with artistic tendencies, and so you're writing, and then you're also showing Renzo some of these models that you have,
Mhm.
and then so Renzo's the artist for the book, and
Yeah.
I'm assuming you have an editor, the person who wrote the 300 years of history, or I'm sorry, the 800 years of history for the story.
So the original writer that did the 800 years of history for Bannerstein and Lance, which is the tabletop game that this comic is based on, or in the same universe or what have you, isn't a editor in a sense. I had to hire an editor for that project as well, but the editor I hired for that project doesn't do comics at all, doesn't know anything about layouts. And I've talked to a couple different editors for the project, but I haven't really decided on one yet. Recently I talked to Aldris on the Farm, if you're familiar with
Oh
his
yeah,
stuff.
excellent choice.
He seems to be the one that we're probably going to go with.
Oh
I
yeah,
just need to confirm the payments and stuff like that. We're doing sort of in a sense like a
you should pay
Marvel
him. You should pay him in Shadow Comics.
Shadow Comics.
He loves the shadow and the spirit. Yeah.
Oh, excellent
I'm
comic.
sorry. Sorry. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to
So
interrupt.
we're sort of doing, because of the complicated layout design for these things, because it uses 3D elements, right?
Yeah.
And 3D resources. We're sort of doing the Marvel method where we have like a basic outline for the script of the comic, but the script is kind of being written post layout. So once the rough layout comes in and like everything's designed where it needs to be, then the script kind of just dialogue and stuff goes over top of that, even though we have a general idea of how everything is kind of being designed, similar to the
Nice.
Marvel method. Yeah.
Yeah. I did the Marvel method for this short comic that I worked on, and yeah, it's interesting. It's there's a lot of freedom to it in a sense, no, because you're not just restricted to what has to be on the panel. You can play around a lot with that, and that's good. So you're going to take that approach for the entire comic.
Pretty much. I mean, once we get the hang of it, I'll be able to get more scripting
Yeah.
down, because this is my first comic. And like I said, I really wanted to feel a part of this thing because I'm an artist too, and it allows me to do a lot of the layouts myself. So I gain experience, doing the layouts and stuff like that in the comic. Because I would like to eventually bust into doing comics myself, which was
Yeah.
my original goal. Doing 3D modeling, many years ago, was to get into comics, to get into Marvel and start making my own books, even though I no longer want to work for Marvel.
Nice. Yeah, me neither. Screw Marvel, DC, and all these corporations. But creative wise, I'm really curious to know how does it work um with the previous writer, because he basically wrote 800 years. I'm sorry, you wrote 800 years of history,
Mhm.
and does he get like any creative credits? Like, is he like a co-creator of this story that you're making,
Oh yeah.
or is that all work for hire type situation?
Well, I actually originally hired him because he was a historian, and
Oh
he had
wow.
very little writing experience. But he discovered working with him that he had a natural tact for doing histories and making fantasy worlds and world building. And he was one of the first ones that jumped on the project to, because I've worked in and around several other artists and people on Bannerstein and Lance, because it's a tabletop game similar to like it's got like a rule book, things like that. So you need more than one person on the team. Like I mostly just do 3D modeling.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about probability mechanics and the math behind that stuff, so I had to hire people for that, and so on and so forth. But as far as credits go, he's a ghostwriter. He doesn't want any
Okay.
credits for the book, but he is getting paid any long-term
Yeah.
royalties for the project.
Oh, nice.
So we have this. We've been because this project has taken so long. I've known the guy for several years, and we've become friends along the way. And
Yeah.
he's fantastic to work with, but he doesn't want to be named or anything. He wants to basically remain anonymous, so I'm fine with that. But yeah, so as far as royalties go, he'll get royalties for the book, and he'll get a copy of the book when it's released, like the
Nice.
game rule book, and probably a bunch of miniatures. And I'll keep bringing him on to other projects. He's advising on this project, right? Because he
Yeah.
knows the history better than anybody else. So I'll run stuff by him, and we'll talk about it a bit. But for the most part, it's mostly just me taking a lot of those ideas that I originally came up with, that he expanded on, and then
Yeah.
just expanding on it further for this book. Right.
Yeah. Nice. Because 800 years of history sounds like a lot of work, and I would imagine like if I'm, for example, like if I'm putting in that kind of work, then there's going to be a certain connection that I'm going to feel to the work. Like, hey, this is also like my baby, also, no, in a
Mhm.
certain sense. And
Yeah.
so I wonder how that worked. But yeah, it's really interesting that you have that that source of information for your world. Because I would love to have something like that. Because in my case, I create everything. I think for most of us, no, for most of us indie creators, we create everything, and it's really and it would be nice, I think, to have like a go-to guy that can help you sort out
As
details, not some nice stuff, really nice. And is this going to be an ongoing series, or is this just an one and done
So
graphic novel?
so I'm gonna this. I planned 45 pages for the first book. I'm probably gonna do 3, maybe 4. I'm not sure if I can wrap up the story in 3. I'm gonna try because again, it's my first thing, first book, to conclude the whole arc of the story, and then eventually
Exactly.
that will be. I guess you could bind that all into a graphic novel or something when it's complete. But each issue will be basically probably 3 to 4 issues. I guess I'm on
Yeah.
100% sure.
Yeah, it sounds like that because if his mission is to conquer this land, and if we're going to see it through all from his start of his mission to the end, it sounds like it's going to be a pretty long ride. So yeah, that sounds good. Sounds good. And so I'm sorry. And so how did you come across Renzo? Did you meet him through Luke?
No, I just was just messaging people in the basically on Twitter in the
Oh yeah, I
comics
remember.
community. I just
I
I con-
remember. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So I contacted one person, next person, next person, next person, next person, and just like shotgunned out anybody at all looking, doing pencils or whatever. And like I said, Renzo was one of the first people I contacted because I really liked his art on Connie Waves, and he was, he was a nice guy to talk to, but he didn't have any time. But it took so long to get an artist that eventually he actually had time, and I negotiated to a slower kind of like release schedule, so you didn't have to do everything at once, which works for me because a lot of comic artists, they just want to go, they just want to get the script and go. But this project is contentious for a lot of people because of the layout design using 3D elements and stuff like that. It takes a long time to get that page and that script and everything ready for them, that they weren't interested in the project at all. Or in some of them weren't interested in having me design the characters. They just wanted the script and, off to the races. Whereas Renzo is like, hey, I can do, it's fine because I can work on other projects while I do this one.
Yeah, sounds great. So there's no set date like for when you're going to start launching the campaign and getting things ready.
Not yet per se, but we do want to finish hopefully the comic by next Halloween. That's kind
By
of the goal.
Halloween.
So
I'll be sure to
sometime.
have you on then also so we can help promote the book. Nice.
Here's one of
Yeah,
the 3D assets for
yeah.
the.
I was just looking at it. So you have this 3D model, and then Renzo puts it in the book, and very accurate. It looks really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, very accurate. Renzo's on that stuff, man. He's really good. Excellent artist. Yeah, and I feel actually dumb asking you about how did you come across Renzo, because I remember, if I'm not mistaken, I was one of the people that you had asked about that. I think also where to get artists from. I think,
Yep.
and yeah, I had recommended. It was really interesting because I had recommended, yeah, put out a post on Twitter, and then and see what happens, because usually I see on Twitter that there's like a post, and then people
Mhm.
just all kinds of people respond to it, and I figured that would be a good way to solicit some artists. But I've recently discovered that that's not the way to go, because what tends to happen is that you'll post the notice that you want, artists, and then you'll get all kinds of artists who don't even know anything about the material that you're trying to put out, and you also get bots, and you get a bunch of mess that can easily be avoided. So yeah, so I'm glad that you were able to get your artist. Renzo is an excellent choice. I had no idea he was available, but he's a really good artist, and yeah, for anybody out there listening, from what I gather, the best thing to do now is just look, find people, our station, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, whatever social media is out there, to get artists, because um, yeah, I mean, there's different styles, and styles have to mesh well with the tone and the theme of the book. And so, yeah, I think it's much better if you look for it than if you ask, just in general. So yeah, that's really interesting. And for example, with the work that you're doing with the 3D models, is there a particular program that you're using to do the models?
I mostly use a program called ZBrush, but I also use a couple other different programs to achieve a lot of like cloth physics and things like that in my modeling. It would be impossible to do the miniatures for the tabletop war game as like with those caparisons, which are the horse blanket that they have on the miniatures, and like you see the cloth on here. It'd be impossible to do that by hand, just by sculpting it. There are very few artists out there that can get the cloth just right in a 3D environment. You can look at a cloth in a 2D image, and
Yeah,
you can get a vague idea of it, right? But as soon as you turn that object, right, you
yeah,
start having issues with consistency. And a lot of artists out there and a lot of action figures and a lot of stuff, they have a great model, but the cloth is horrid. So I use a physics-based cloth program that helps me figure out draping, the different cloth in different ways. Once the draping is figured out, then I can model on top of that.
oh, that sounds awesome. And but at the same time, you're not gonna have any Todd McFarlane-esque capes.
Well, actually, I
Like
can
the
I can
to-
do I can do Farland-esque type capes,
nice.
but I think I could do
Is
them
that
better.
is that
Better.
is that physically possible? Like, could you have a cape that does bend and fold like that and
Yeah,
look?
I can. Yeah.
Oh wow, I thought that was pure like just imaginary, like just him having fun with the art. I didn't know there's realism to that. Oh, that's nice. That's dope.
So I could actually do that, but I could give it physics qualities as well. So I would drape in different
Sweet.
places. So one of the programs I use is called Marvelous Designer. The main program I use is called ZBrush, and
Mm.
I could do the spawn cape, and then I could do like secondary pieces of material to make it expand. Right. So I do the
Yeah.
first initial, thing, and then basically it kind of works like a sewing program. And then once you've sewn the pattern together, you then drape it over the model and then see where it goes from there. And you can move it around, and you get different effects and stuff. Like I've actually done flowing capes, like in the Spawn kind of style before, for a commission that isn't shown here for a YouTuber that I'm sort of under an NDA with, so I can't really talk about it.
Nice. Well, that's crazy. I had no idea that that's a real thing. That's dope. Yeah. And then I'd like to say hi to we got T Bunny in the chat. What's going on, man? Good to
Hey,
see
T
you.
Bunny.
And he says, "What's going on, kids? Not much, not much, man." He says, "Whiskey is a 3D badass, no cap." Yeah, I agree. Yeah, this 3D work looks great, and then the program you're using, and then the modeling, and then the realism you add to it, really good stuff. I don't know. Is sculpting is something that you like to do in the future? Because
like
that would be great to have another sculptor
like sculpting like by hand, like clay and stuff.
with 3D. I think a 3D printer is the way people go now. I think, I'm not sure. Because I don't know if you're familiar. Because um, I don't know if you're familiar with Shadowpunk with Matt.
So I do
He
sculpting. Yes,
excuse me.
I do sculpting. So every 3D model I design is actually sculpted in 3D programs, right? So there's
Like
two
with
different,
resin.
not out of like you can print them out in resin, but there's the terminology for it is there's two types of 3D modeling, right? There's what they call if I can remember it, just poly modeling, I think it's called, which is like kind of like box modeling, like
Yeah.
sort of stuff like that. And they use it for video games, low poly stuff, and you get out to working with points, and then you expand the mesh and divide squares until you get an object. But you can also sculpt in a sense, just like you would in clay, but with a 3D program. You use a stylus or a mouse, and you just move the brush across the screen, and
Okay.
it removes material and takes away material. So this character
Oh,
is sculpted. and then the cloth physics are added later, so on and so forth.
Nice. So I guess my question goes to like, or are you looking forward to printing out the sculptures that you have or that you can make?
Oh yeah,
Is that
I actually have an industrial sized 3D printer for the
nice?
tabletop game. I can print off an entire army of like set of miniatures in basically one go. But the reason I
Oh
got
wow!
it is for its size was because of the recasting. So what you do is a master copy, which is much larger than the original copy, so that when you reduce its size, you retain all of that fine detail for recasting.
Oh
But
nice.
as far as getting the stuff from the comic book made, yes, a lot of the like that wagon we saw earlier
Yeah,
that's going to be a campaign extra for a few lucky people. The that character, a bust of his head, like a bust of that character you see Dantes, will also be a campaign extra as well. I'll 3D print out those. I'll paint them up. They'll get like a signature and stuff like that on the base, and you know.
nice. And what scale is this printed on? Like
Uh,
how big would these?
I can basically make it the size of a human head, like if I really
Oh
wanted
wow!
to, or
Oh
larger.
nice,
Yeah.
sweet. Because that would be something interesting to offer other creators on their campaigns, like a 3D model sculpt or a bust of their character. I think people would dig that.
I actually, I've been trying to bust in to do like action figures for different characters, but unfortunately, a lot of people doing these projects, they have all their money invested in the project. They
Yeah,
don't budget a lot for extra stuff, and maybe
yeah,
they'll
yeah,
budget for some, a couple, t-shirts or something like that, or stickers or
yeah,
buttons. But 3D modeling takes a very long time to
yeah,
do. Right, almost 2 to 3 times as much effort as a or time as a 2D image. Right,
yeah.
so like and then the cost of commission work reflects that. Some people when they try to hire a 3D artist, they expect like $50, when the reality it's going to be 400, 500, 600, or 1,000 or more, depending on
Yeah,
the hours. you know
I hear that. Like, yeah, because when I was doing my short comic, I reached out uh, to an animator because I wanted to like an animated trailer, and yeah, the animation is also very expensive. And
was that did
I
you
staffed it
Pedro?
out.
Did you talk
No, no,
to
no,
Pedro?
no, not Pedro. No, but yeah, I'm pretty sure Pedro will be in the same rank, in the same price range because his
Mhm.
Pedro's work is phenomenal, and yeah, he does really good animation work. But yeah, like things like that, like animations, 3D bust. Yeah, I'm assuming those things are they cost a pretty penny. So, but yeah, if it's available one day, I think that would be great because I mentioned the Shadowpunk Matt because he has offered through other creators several statues. I'm not sure if it's resin. I'm pretty sure it is. I'm not sure.
Yeah, usually you print
Um,
them for high detail models. You print them off in
yeah,
like a resin 3D printer. Yeah.
yeah, he's offered like a gray statue that the backer can paint himself,
Mhm.
and also black ones and yeah, that's like when you talk to me about 3D modeling, like I associate it with that, and then I wonder if that could be something that you might have an interest for in the future, but
Oh yeah, definitely for sure.
yeah, that's awesome because yeah, it would be great to see your characters in the 3D model like that. That's awesome. And how long have you been in this in the indie scene?
Well, in the comic indie scene, as far as like comic skate and some like indie comic stuff, very shortly. Not like basically as soon as Luke started doing his streams for like Nerd Bake or whatever, I
Yeah,
was like
yeah.
one of the first guests, and I just kept sticking around.
Oh,
And
nice.
so less. I'm not even sure how much time has passed. I think less than a year, maybe,
Oh,
for
nice.
the indie comics. But as far as 3D modeling, I've been doing it for over 10 years.
Oh, nice. Yeah, sweet. Yeah. So and what is your appreciation? Or I'm sorry, what is your analysis of the indie scene? What has what's your opinion like? What do you take from it?
Uh, I think that there are good people throughout the indie comics, like on an individual level. I think that a lot of
Yeah,
people are basically it's just like anything. Like there's different people and different things with different ideologies and different perspectives and different views, and you're gonna encounter people on a case by case basis that you agree with or don't agree with, or have a problem with what you say or don't have a problem with what you say. But like that's just natural for everything, right? That happens
yeah,
in the tabletop gaming community, that happens in the comics community, that happens in the political community. Everybody's going to have a different view. So I try to stick with the people that agree with my ideologies and my views and my values, and
yeah.
I try to be nice as often as I can, but I also don't like to be pushed and so I just cut people out that are jerks to me, and just stick with the people that are nice to me, and that's sort of what my experience so far.
Sweet, awesome, man. Yeah, yeah. That's how it. Yeah, as you mentioned, that's how it tends to be with everything that you get involved with at work, at school, and just
Mhm.
hanging out with friends. It's the same situation. Yeah, good stuff, man. And yeah, I was under the impression that you were a writer and that you were. I'm sorry, strictly a writer. And they, I didn't. I was unaware of your of the artistry, the 2D art behind it. And I was going to ask you from a writer's perspective, like. What are your writing influences? Like, which are writers would you say have influenced your form of writing, or the style that you like to use for your comic?
I would say that I take it from I don't have a particular style that I really like or dislike or use. Like I'm a new writer. This would be my first ever book of any kind. So I don't have a lot of experience. Mostly just it's whatever's in my head and my ideas. I used to play Dungeon Dragons when I was in high school. And towards the end of high school, and it became very difficult to find people to play with because everybody be working. But I used to play in the role of the dungeon master quite often. I'd write universes and ideas and different stories, and I developed my own kind of unique thing while I was doing that. So a lot of the influences come from that, but a lot of the books that I read that might influence my work are like fantasy novels and Tolkien and Ed Greenwood from like does the Forgotten Realms stuff, and I read a lot of Dragonlance when I was younger. I read different authors all across different genres, and I think probably every single author that I've encountered probably has or read a book from, even the bad ones, probably have influence in how that I write today. And
Nice. And in terms of comics, is there any particular comic writer that you like?
any particular comic writer that I like?
Yeah. Or that you think that would influence your work?
As regards to comics, no, I'm actually relatively new to a lot of the because my experience with comics growing up was essentially like I'd read a book here and there, right? Because my parents would buy me a book, and then whatever, and then when I was a youth, and then I didn't get a lot of comics and continuity until much later in life when I was able to afford to buy stuff on my own in my like 20s. I struggled a little bit with finances when I was in my 20s, and then late in my late 20s, I was able to purchase and buy books. Uh, so I basically stuck with like Marvel and stuff like that, and the big companies up until the woke stuff. So I'm not 100% familiar with all the names. I've been, but as far as visually goes, I like a lot of Gene Colan's work. I like a lot of
Oh, nice.
like I'm particularly fan because I recently reviewed some of his stuff. Uh, other artists I'm a fan of are Hogarth. Recently took a look at his stuff on Tarzan. I don't know. I just like I said, I'm new to comics, so a lot of the names are just I'm still getting used to them, and
Yeah, nice.
you know, it, well, some people say it might be like a tourist in a sense, but yeah, that's you are what you are.
No, yeah, there's no shame in it. Um, but yeah, I mean, you got. you got really good artists here. Gene Colan is an excellent artist. And Hogarth also. What is there to say? No, it's really good stuff. And awesome. No, good. And so I mean, I guess I guess you probably wouldn't be able to point out like a popular storyline or a favorite storyline that you've read recently or at all in the time that you've been reading comics.
Well,
Like a favorite storyline or like a good story from a comic that you've read recently.
well, I mean, everybody that's newer to comics, they always mention the big ones like Watchmen, right? But
Okay.
I liked the book a lot. I really liked the art. I was a fan of the story, but I wasn't a huge fan of the of Moore, right, himself. But like,
Yeah.
and before the Spider Verse stuff, I was a big fan of the Superior Spider Man's Superior Spider Man run, the lead up to. I don't remember who was on that though. And like all the Marvel comics and stuff that I have a bin of like like not a long box, but like a bin of haphazardly stacked comics. Like I don't spend a lot of time memorizing the names of the artists and stuff like that. And only recently, when I've been doing streams with Randy Zimmerman on a comics
Zcast.
by yeah Randy Zimmerman's Comics by Night and Sunday Funnies, have I started to get into reading the names or like understanding who did what and what's going on. So I can tell you more about my favorite artists than I can about who's my favorite writer because I just honestly don't know.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. No. No problem. Sounds good, man. And so you're scheduled for next year in October or Halloween for releasing and you're going to put out artwork little by little with Renzo. You
Mhm.
have your editor attached to the project also. Um,
Well, hopefully soon.
have you been able to see like some of the comics from the indie scene and like what role the editor plays with that? Because there's two groups. One group that prefers to just do the comic and the story without an editor, and there's another group that say that editors are important.
Mhm.
Um, have you been able to see any comics recently from the indie scene to make
To make a
an
decision.
analysis about whether you're going to push forward with one or maybe not use one?
No, to be honest, I've been all of my finances have been so tight and so involved with
Yeah,
these projects that it's difficult for me to basically take time to use the bathroom, let alone purchase a comic. So,
no
like,
problem. Yeah, nice.
so it's like I want to support all these books, but I haven't had. So I have a long list of books that I've written down that I want to check out, but I haven't had the time or the money yet to actually check it in the indie comics. What I do though is I still want to support these projects, so
Yeah,
I made an effort to promote them and
yeah,
talk
definitely.
about them and be like, I like the art for this one, so I'm going to promote your stuff. And to be honest, I'm more interested in art than I am in story, but it doesn't mean that I'm not interested in story. So on the top of the
Yeah.
list, I want to check out is Perfect 10, Dave Brink stuff from
Oh yeah, that's
Genuine
good.
Comics.
Yeah.
Uh, the book that you put out or worked on, the one about the Vikings, I can't remember the name of. It's on the list too. The
Did I put out?
did you do a book on the Vikings or Shadow something or other? Or was that
I
a
did.
different?
I'm usually what I do is pinups and
Maybe I got the names
yeah,
incorrect.
just pinups and yeah, I do a lot of pinup work for other creators. I'm working on my own comic,
Oh, okay.
but it's not related to Vikings. I did sketch cards a few months ago
Oh, I thought that was okay.
for
So my mistake.
yes, for White Leopard.
That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, for White Leopard, I did three sketch cards. One of them was a Viking. Yeah, and yeah, so that comic is by Edwin Acevedo. I think he
Oh, okay.
closed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he closed that campaign. But yeah, that comic was really well received also, and yeah, so I do that. I did pinups. Pinups. I got a pinup for Swarm, which is currently funding. I'll be having Shane on the channel soon, and yeah, I do work with Fallen Man. I do kaiju's and all kinds of stuff, and then yeah, I'm hopefully if I can find the time, I would really like to do a piece for T Bunny, because T
Comic
Bunny's
is on the list.
yeah, T Bunny is he's an avid supporter, and he's helped me out a lot also with story wise, and yeah, he's definitely somebody that you like to have in your corner to help you with the comic creating process, and his comic is also coming out, and I would like to do a piece for him also if it's possible. Um, but yeah, he's confirming though that Edwin's comic is closed, and
Oh,
he
that
got
one.
his
Yeah,
yesterday. Yeah, he
yeah.
got his yesterday. Nice,
That's the
sweet.
problem with putting stuffs on the list. Sometimes you just miss out, right?
No, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Speaking of missing out, like I remember years ago I missed out on Groken when
Hmm.
Roquefort put that out for the first time, and but I got on it for Groken 2, and I got my confirmation like 2 days ago that it's being shipped. So I'm expecting that to come in the mail soon, and I can't wait to get that.
Hmm.
And yeah, so hopefully I'll be able to do the unboxing and then dive into the world of Groken, because he's an excellent artist, and yeah, man. So yeah, that's awesome stuff, man. So yeah, because I mentioned that about the editors, because uh, one of my one of the things that I've noticed reading and reading these indie comics is that, in my personal opinion, I think that editors could have made some of these books a lot better. Some of the books are good, but there were areas where I think an editor could have really like pushed it to the next level, because I've seen grammatical errors, I've seen
Hmm.
just the plot holes and things like that, and just um, really sloppy panels. But but yeah, so I hopefully I will avoid that, hopefully, because I'm trying to get an editor for my book also, and hopefully I can reduce the amount of mistakes that I make, because I put out a short comic and I thought it was flawless. I sent it out to what was the people that purchased. I sent out the PDF, and then I got a lot of feedback on this short story comic, and
Hmm.
and I was surprised by the amount of grammatical mistakes that I made. And so hopefully for the next comic, I'll be able to get an editor and then reduce all those mistakes. I had run-on sentences and things going on that I hadn't thought about from an initial point. So, like for example, if you ask me, editors are super important, and so I wanted to hear what your opinion on that was, because
Well,
I believe it to be important.
the people that I look up to, like Luke and stuff like that, Luke Stone and Randy Zimmerman, some of the people I do podcasts with,
Right.
uh, uh, like Randy's been doing, he's been doing Arrow comics since the 70s, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
like, and like Luke is, he involved with that stuff, and they've drilled into my head that I should get an editor, right?
Yeah. I think so. Yeah.
Uh, so like, I'm just gonna go with the expertise for sure. Because like, why not? The expertise is there. The other thing that Randy told me to do that I kind of ignored was do short stories first when you start getting involved in to the
Yeah.
newer stuff. But I kind of wanted to tell this story. I didn't think I could do it in a short story. So
Yeah.
maybe later on, once the universe is more visually established, I can then take the characters and do short stories about them. And it
Yeah.
might be fun.
Yeah. Nice. Sounds great, man. Yeah. And T Bunny says appreciate it, man. Yeah, I appreciate you, T Bunny. Yeah, don't think that you're not appreciated around these parts. You definitely are. And yeah, as soon as I get some time, I would like to do a piece. Speaking of which, I have a series called "What Should I Draw," and where I do fan art pieces.
Hmm.
And I would like for T Bunny to submit and to do a submission for that, so I can rig it, and then I can draw his piece. But Well, but anyways, I'm rambling. But
You're more than welcome to draw on my characters anytime. I can provide you with
yeah.
all the references.
Usually, what I have a series. Yeah, it's called "What Should I Draw?" And then I ask people to submit ideas for fan art, and then I let the people vote, and then when they vote, I get the most voted one, and I do a piece. The last time that I did it, I did a piece for B.A. Turner
Mhm.
and for Vigilante's Creed. I did his character Dread Knight, and so I need to do it again. Hopefully I can do it soon, maybe in a few weeks, 2 weeks or so, because I'm currently working on a commission, and so as soon as I get that done, I'll do it again. I'll rig the contest, and then I'll do a I'll, I'll do a piece for T Bunny. Yeah, because I like his character Ironsides. He's been a really cool. It's got a cool design, really unique. Um, and so yeah, hopefully I'll be able to do that. And what
T
else was
Bunny's put a lot of effort into his books as well, and he's a good guy if you
yeah,
get to
yeah.
know him. And I wish him the amazing
Yeah, definitely.
success with his stuff. Allegedly,
Yeah,
he's also one of those writers is quite prolific as well. So
no, yeah, and if you hang out with him, he'll be sure to tell you and drill you to that you need an editor. You should get an editor. Always get an editor first. And so yeah, that's good stuff, man. And so yeah, so any last thoughts, recommendations, suggestions for people out there who want to know more about what you have to offer?
yeah, you can, like I said, you can find me on Twitter mostly if you're looking to get something made for 3D models. That's basically my day job. Bayonet and Ricochet on Twitter there. Right in the under my name or beside my name, Whiskey. Send me a message and we'll try to get you hooked up. It is expensive. It takes a very long time to do any 3D modeling. So don't go into the concept with like it's going to cost me $50. The object you're going to get for $50 from another artist is going to be a pre-used asset that they just slightly modified, and it's not going to look very good. Good art takes time.
Yeah, definitely. I hear that. And yeah. You have learned well, grasshopper. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you need an editor. And yeah, I'm gonna need to shoot you the comic that I did so you can see the mistakes I made. But but yeah, and then in my case, you can catch me on this is my YouTube channel. You can catch me here every other week. So next week there's no show, but the week after that I'm coming back, and I have my good friend John Harvey from Harvey Bars. I'm just kidding. No, he's from Beyond Time Comics. He's currently working on Black Dragon, the second issue, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm
Mhm.
going to have him on the show next week talking about that, and then I'll have Shane, and then from King Toad, and then we'll have more guests and continue talking about comics and the comic making process and pick the brains of these creative people. So thank you very much, Whiskey, for coming on. I really appreciate your time, and thank you for showing us your comic Driftwood. This is coming out next year, so I'm assuming that we'll be posting more art and stuff as you get it on
Mhm.
Twitter, and
Yep.
yeah, we look forward to that. And before I leave, I'm going to show you guys the trailer for people that don't know or have forgotten that I am working on my own comic, and my 10-page short story is finished and it's available now. I'm going to show you just some two clips, and then we'll call it a day. And thank you very much. And I will see you, all you wonderful people in the chat. I will see you in 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Mark your calendars. 2 weeks from now. It's the 23rd, something like that. And yeah, so thank you very much, Whiskey. It's been a great show, great chat, and I will see you. Um, I'll see you later.
No, a
Take care.
genuine pleasure.
Excellent. And I will leave you with the trailer and extra information, and I will catch you in 2 weeks. Take care. Hello, everyone. The time is finally upon us. Ominus Avenging Death is now available. Avenging Death is a short 10-page story that serves as a preview of what kind of art you can expect and the world you'll see in the main story of Ominus. In Avenging Death, we'll see Zadok take on the monstrous Deathmonger in a 10-page fight scene that'll be sure to get you hooked into the world of Ominus. All of the artwork is done, including the line art, which was done by me, the colors, which were done by Emmanuel Orlas, and the lettering, which was done by Paul Bird. So grab your copy of the digital PDF file today for only $5. That's right, $5. Contact me in my DMs on Twitter for more information. Now coming up next is the official trailer of Ominus Avenging Death. Enjoy.